Okay, so I wanted to do a follow-up on the video I posted earlier this week about how GT was essentially pausing the brand and I was losing my sponsorship. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it in the description below. Go figure, my best performing video of the year was the one I put the least amount of effort in, and I just got it out there. Before I jump into this video, I do want to introduce myself and who I am. Some people watch the last video and they're like, who's this YouTuber? Hi, my name is Phil Metz. I used to be a professional downhill racer. I never had any super noticeable results. I was a four-time collegiate national champion. I was a privateer and I qualified 24th at the 2015 Wyndham World Cup, which is really hard to do as a privateer. In the finals, I ended up crashing, but in Sector 2, I had the 7th fastest split of the day. I wasn't consistent, but I could be fast when I had a good run. Growing up, I raced BMX. I raced in the World Championships, made the finals. Person who won the 1999 World Championships that I placed 8th in ended up being one of the most legendary Moto GP, MXGP riders, Gautier Paulin. So some of you guys might know that name. If a lot of the people who I raced with when I was living in France ended up becoming Olympians, like I don't know how to say it in American way. Joris Daudet, is that how they say it? I know it the French way, Joris Daudet. He is the current gold medal Olympian. I've raced with people who are really good. I don't have the accolades I wish I had during my race career, but there was a lot of achievements I did have that I was proud of. But I happen to be really lucky and also have an interest in things going on the internet, wanting to make videos, and I happen to start making YouTube tutorials before it was cool, before most people started looking into YouTube as a social media platform. I also have a business and marketing degree. To be honest, I don't really find marketing to be something that I enjoy. I also have a culinary arts degree. Not that that's relevant, but I went to school for culinary arts. Anyway, that's who I am. And now let's talk about the video I posted last week, or at the beginning of this week. Basically, GT is done. All the athletes have been let go or will be letting go. I was on a call earlier this week with most of the athletes. There's a few notable athletes that weren't on the call, but I think they learned the same things just from a more private phone call, letting us know that they were having to pause the brand, that the employees were being let go at the end of the month. The only employees that were going to be remaining were there to help sell off the rest of the inventory. And once inventory is gone, I don't know what's happening. I do know that if you do want to get a really good deal on a dirt jumper right now, go check their website because there's some screaming deals. Now, if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it in the description below, but I think you basically got the gist. I'm losing my sponsorship, and the sponsorship is a good chunk of my salary, so that puts me in a little bit of a pickle. So I'm going to have to figure something out, and this time of the year is the worst time of the year to be negotiating contracts because usually by December, all the budgets have already been made. Secondly, there are a lot of other teams, companies shutting down. We saw Rocky Mountain just announce that they're going through a restructure, whatever that means. So there are a lot of people right now, whether they work in the industry or whether they're riders in the industry, that are losing their jobs or having to find new work or sources of income. And so there's a lot of competition for the little remaining scraps. And for me, I don't know what that means because I don't know if I will be able to find enough revenue to justify continuing doing YouTube. Essentially, in order to do this, I need to rely on multiple sources of income. I have YouTube AdSense. I used to have Patreon. I shut that down a while ago. I had my sponsors. And then you have merch and other things, affiliate links. I find some of the other ways you can make money from being a YouTuber, I hate that term, but the ways you can make money can be a little bit sleazy. Like I have zero interest in doing sponsorships from Temu. With that out of the way, blah, 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 I have started a Patreon. So for those of you who do want to help support me, I'll leave that link in the description below. I'm not telling you to go to Patreon to support me, but if you do, that exists. I might be figuring something out to do with Patreon in the long term. I don't know what that's going to be, but I do want to try to figure out something in the meantime. After I posted the video, we finally saw the press release come out. It was just weird timing. Pinkbike was down when this announcement came out, and so the press release didn't actually make it to Pinkbike until a few days after the announcement. We saw the press release. If you haven't, I'll leave a link to that in the description below too. That press release seems to contradict a lot of things I said in my video. If you saw, I saw people saying that on Reddit. I will definitely agree with what I read in that press release. It was not what I was told on the call. And who do I believe? I believe what I was told on the call. The press release was most likely written by corporate. I suspect that was written by Pond themselves. I don't think anyone at GT actually had anything to do with that press release because it was very corporate wash, corporate speak, and a lot of nothing. I've been on the internet for a while. You can take my word or you can not trust me. I am just giving you my side of the story, and I understand if you don't know me why you might be skeptical when the official narrative comes from a press release that contradicts what I'm saying. A lot of people were saying, hey, Phil, I watch you because of the riding and not because of the bike or sponsorships that you have. And I understand that sentiment. I wish I could do things completely without sponsorship. I wish I didn't have to think about money. However, in order to justify doing this full time, you have to have some kind of way to make it worth it. Otherwise, you will just go off and get a regular job and not have to deal with all the other things. So I understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate that. But the brands are really important to help support what I do. And now, when I choose a brand to work with, I'm pretty strict with who I take on and who I haven't. I've learned a lot over the years I've been riding. I've been riding competitively since I was 5 years old. When I was competing competitively, I did not make any money at all. It's not until I started making content that I started making money. And I was one of the first content creators in the YouTube mountain bike space. So I was really early on into the scene, and it was a whole new world that we were essentially paving because companies didn't know what to do with us. They didn't know if I was coming out of the athlete budget or the marketing budget. Now I think it's just marketing and athlete is the same thing to them. They've kind of figured it out. But at the beginning, they didn't know what to do with us. Also, you want to find brands that reflect you as a person, that kind of jive. Like, for example, when I was signing with GT, there was a few other bike brands that I was talking to. And I was working with an agent at the time. It was the first and only time I've worked with an agent. And he was pitching me to Scott. To be honest, I didn't want to work with Scott. They make great bikes. They have great products. However, I just find them as a brand and their products to be kind of, I don't know, boring. It didn't seem like a brand that I was going to gel with. As a kid who grew up racing BMX, GT was the company to represent. I wasn't the only one. There were a lot of other people on GT who had been with GT for a long time. Hans Ray, I don't know how long he was with GT, but it was a really, really long time. It might have actually been one of the longest sponsorships in the mountain bike industry. Tyler McCall, he's been with GT forever. Braga raced World Cups under GT, went to ride for another company, and then came back and specifically wanted to work with GT. There is more than just the bikes that make you want to ride for one company over another. For me, I am living on the East Coast. There weren't many East Coast brands. At the time, it was basically, you had Cannondale and GT. They are sister companies at the time. Before they were acquired by Pond, they were under another brand, CSG. I think it was CSG. A lot of acronyms to remember. I sometimes get them confused. And I knew a lot of these people because having grown up racing on the East Coast, a lot of the people who you raced with go to work for companies. So a lot of the engineers I knew. Ryan Burney, when I won collegiate national championships, well, I won it multiple times, but I won that jersey in 2016, 2015. He won it in D2. He was one of the engineers for GT. We had a really good relationship, which is how I got into the brand in the first place. It was through personal connections, and those personal connections to me mean more than money. Money is nice, But you gotta find the balance. I don't like to sell my soul for money. So when I'm representing a brand, I need to find a brand that I value. If something annoys me, you're gonna know it, and it's gonna reflect in the video. So I have to find brands that I personally jive with and that I don't think would be a bad fit for the channel. So you always have to find a brand that reflects your values, because your audience will know if you're being shady. And my goal is not to be shady. I want to be as transparent as possible. One of the comments I saw was, GT hasn't been making good bikes, no wonder they went under. That's just not correct. The Fury and Force both won World Cups and EWSs. I don't know how else you will judge a bike's quality based off anything else besides for race results. That's why I think you want to sponsor competitors, because it proves a product. They were good bikes. They were undeniably good bikes. Now there's a bunch of other things I could say. Like, a lot of people were talking about how GTs were being sold in department stores. GT actually pulled out of a department stores. Whether or not that was the right move, I don't know. I understand that it can devalue a brand if you see their products being sold at a certain department store. However, there are more people who ride bikes who aren't going to bike shops to get them. The GT Avalanche, which was being sold at Dick's Sporting Goods, it was a good bike. Like, it's not a bike that I would go for a bike park lap on. However, by all means, it was a great beginner bike. Maybe intermediate, like if you put some new parts on it, which you could. So it wasn't a entry-level bike. It was a decent bike for a low price point. But one bike that kind of fell underneath the radar, and one that I didn't really ride, I did make a video for, was the GT Grade. The GT Grade was one of those bikes that was way cooler and more interesting than most people thought. It was the first carbon disc-equipped gravel bike to hit the market. At the time, in 2014-ish, when gravel was kind of coming about, most people did gravel rides on something called cyclocross bikes. These were essentially road bikes that just had a little bit more clearance to fit fatter tires for cyclocross racing. It was a weird genre of racing, still exists, really fascinating to watch. But gravel was essentially taking those bikes and going for a longer ride on dirt back roads. It's turned into what you know now. GT was ahead of the time. I don't think the Grade got the recognition it deserved. It won many awards. However, you don't see them that often, which is unfortunate. And I think that's the hardest thing for me as an athlete, is when people ask, oh, I like your bike, where can I buy it? I didn't have a freaking answer for them. Sometimes I'd find them on Jensen USA, but most of the time, I didn't have a good answer. A lot of bike shops didn't carry them. Even the dealers that were listed on GT's website didn't stock GTs. I suspect when GT and Cannondale were still under CSG, Cannondale was essentially the golden boy of CSG. Cannondale makes some great products. I have nothing bad to say about them. They definitely got preferential treatment. So when the representatives would go to bike shops, I don't think there was much incentive to try to get the shops to carry GT. There was a lot more incentive to try to get them to carry Cannondale and make sure the bike shop's relationship with Cannondale was all set. The fact of the matter is, it was really hard to buy a GT, even if you wanted one. And as an athlete, it was so frustrating because I wanted to see people get to enjoy these bikes. I like GT because they were really good bikes, but they also weren't terribly expensive. With all these $10,000 bikes coming out, the fact that you could get a top-of-the-line GT Force for $6,000, but if you wanted to, you could get the budget version of the exact same bike for $2,000. GT made price-conscious bikes that aligned with my audience. A lot of my audience are people who didn't know about Pink Bike. This was the first time they were learning about mountain bikes. So it made a lot more sense for me to align with a brand that made products that could get people into mountain biking at a lower price point. There aren't that many riders or people getting into mountain biking who just have $10,000 sitting around to buy a new bike. That's a lot of money to spend on a hobby. So more recently, GT did redo their website and they have been selling some of their bikes there, which is great. It makes my job a whole lot easier. But now dealers feel slighted. And I understand a lot of people have issues with bike shops. And I've had my fair share of run-ins with bike shops that I didn't feel welcome in. However, the fact of the matter is you need bike shops. Bike shops are kind of like this liaison between the company and the brand. So if you have anything wrong with it, you can bring it to the bike shop. The bike shop will take care of you to make your life easier. That way you're not constantly having to deal directly with GT. You can go to the bike shop who you might know better. Me personally, I'm a millennial. I like to buy things online. I would rather just hit click and have it shipped to my door than have to go to a intermediary to buy a bike, have the awkward social interaction, and have them tell me what I think, or have them tell me what they think I should get instead of me being able to make that decision for myself. I like to do my thinking without someone else's influence over me. Okay, so one of the comments I saw on YouTube was, he has 500 million subscribers, he'll be fine. I want to address that comment because I understand where you're coming from. I don't think YouTube is as lucrative as you think. I know there's a lot of streamers and whatnot who are making a lot of money. I've been making a decent living. I'm not rich, I'm not poor, but losing out on a good chunk of your salary, that hurts. Now, I don't want you to cry for me, I don't want pity party. I'm just stating the reality of the situation is I don't know if I make as much as people think. Here, I'll even show you how much I made this month through YouTube AdSense. I know it looks like a lot to some, but to others, that's really not that much. That's enough to help justify what I do, but there are other things I could be doing with my time and probably making more money. But I love bikes. I've been riding my whole life. It's cool to be able to help shape the sport in some kind of fashion. We see a lot of not so great influences there out on the internet, and I'm very lucky to be one of the few people who is in a spot to have a little bit of an impact. How big of an impact? I don't know. But I do have a small impact on the little circle of the world that I occupy. A lot of people have been reaching out like, hey, you should contact this company or this company will help me out. And I've actually been in touch with a few companies. We haven't really gone far. It's a holiday, so no one's really that interested in talking right now. Everyone wants to go spend time with their families, which is completely understandable. But I want to kind of reiterate something. I have a whole garage full of bikes. I don't need bikes. I don't really need bike parts. So getting a sponsor to provide me with just bikes isn't really going to do me any good. But that being said, if you're a company and you want to discuss ways that we can work together, let me know if you have anything that you think you can bring to the table. I don't even know if I'm going to try to find a direct replacement for GT. It's such a big spot to fill that I might just completely change my sponsorship structure, and yeah, I'm open to other options. But I'm not that eager to jump on a new bike. Some people have suggested going in the direction of doing more coaching. To be honest, I enjoy making instructional videos. I'm not a great in-person coach. I think to be a good in-person coach, you have to be a little bit more charismatic. I know I might be charismatic on video. In person, I'm a little bit more socially awkward. I have a hard time commanding a crowd of people, and I've always found doing instructional things in person to be really challenging. Not to mention, I like helping people progress just organically. Like if I'm at a skate park or at a bike park and I see someone needs help, like I love helping people here and there. But there's no financial transaction. That's just because that's what I like to do. Once you add that financial aspect to it, it feels weird. So I don't love coaching. I'm not against it. It's just not the thing that I enjoy doing as much as making videos about skills and then putting that out for free. So a lot of people are wondering, now that I'm not on GT, what bike am I going to be riding? I'm going to be riding the same bikes. I like them. They're great bikes. I have nothing bad to say about them. I've gotten to know them really well. And like I said, I am in no rush to jump onto another bike. I will definitely explore other opportunities. There's a few bikes that I have been wanting to ride that I haven't been able to ride. Mainly a fat bike because we live in a snowy condition, or we live in a snowy area, so it'd be kind of nice to try them out. Another one is a trials bike. I dabbled with trials for a very short stint, find them really fun, but GT never made a trials bike. I probably could have retrofitted one of my bikes to be more of a trials bike, but now that I have the option, I can go out and buy one and just fiddle around with it. Okay, so I've edited the video and I realized I missed a few points, so I feel like I should add them here. First of all, there's a lot of comments along the lines of like, surprised you didn't see this coming, we saw it from a mile away, I'm surprised you're blindsided, everyone knew this was coming, and I saw a bunch of those kinds of comments. And those are the comments that get under my skin the most, mainly because you didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. I'm not going to disagree that GT hasn't been the most desirable company in the past few years. They've been in a rebuilding phase for a while now, and it's been really excited to see. And I knew some things that were coming out. I knew what the employees were working on, or at least working towards. I knew they were hitting their benchmarks. I knew they were exceeding them. Yes, the industry as a whole right now is in a bit of a slump. Yes, there are a lot of companies going under, but GT was relatively small. It was nimble. It was a small piece of the pie. It wasn't really putting much stress on the parent company. So this decision kind of comes out of nowhere. Literally, the employees found out maybe a week before we did. They didn't know about it. They were literally working on products within hours of finding out that they were being let go. So it's not that crazy to think that a lot of us were blindsided. But yes, GT has been in a rebuilding phase, and that's also kind of what makes it exciting. There's promise, there's hope, there's things that we were looking forward to, and we were getting so close. I say we because I feel like I was part of the equation. And I think a lot of people who were saying we saw this coming from a mile away actually say that, but they don't understand what was going on behind the scenes. GT had metrics that they needed to meet. They were meeting those metrics and exceeding them. So yeah, a lot of people were blindsided by this. Now, to be honest, when GT was acquired by Pon, I was pretty skeptical. I am not a huge proponent of private equity, holding companies, those sorts of things. Before Pon, GT was under CSG, Durrell. They've been passed around a bunch. But the one thing you got to remember is people working at the companies really care. They love what they're doing. They love the products that they're making. They're trying their best to make what they can with the stuff they have. And unfortunately, they've been held back for quite a few years now. It's been frustrating for the employees. There are so many things that they've wanted to do, stories that they've wanted to tell, that they haven't been able. The GT sensor that I'm on, here's a little fun fact. The GT sensor that I've been riding was actually supposed to be called a GT Force. Their parent company at the time wanted to do what Bronco has kind of done with the Ford lineup. Bronco has been like a brand within a brand. They're trying to do that within GT. So they're taking the Force name and applying it to any bike that was an enduro trail thing. Literally, if I go to my bike right now, you can see there's a sticker over where it says Force. That's how close they were to releasing that bike as a Force. And none of the employees wanted this. This was a decision from higher up. So they actually had a little bit more freedom under Pon. Yes, there's still a private equity holdings company, but there was hope. There's hope. The people behind the products genuinely cared. So people at the company were working on really cool things. They were working towards building GT to where it should be. And we never got to that point because it was never allowed to run its course. And unfortunately, the story that is left is that GT was making lackluster bikes, and that's why they went under, because they never got to finish what they were working on. And that's unfortunate. And it's a bummer, because I think it's a huge loss for the industry. Side note, while editing the video, I was trying to figure out where this number plate came from. And I realized it wasn't mine. That was Hailey's. I was at the Nationals that year, but I would have had a 2-digit number plate. That was when Hailey was racing at XC Nationals. So had to do a little digging to figure out where it came from. I think I've covered most of the points. I don't know how long this video is going to turn out. I'm looking at the time. It's been an hour that I've been recording. I'm probably going to distill it quite a bit, so it's not quite that long. If you do want to support me and help us out in this period, I will leave a link to our Patreon in the description below. I don't know what the future of Skills with Phil is. I'm going to do my best to continue making videos. However, it's winter, which is usually the slow period for me because I can't really ride when there's snow on the ground, but we're going to try to figure some things out. Secondly, I don't know if I want to use this as an opportunity to pivot and change career paths. And it's something that I really enjoy. Last year, my wife and I built a trail completely for free, and it's a professional grade trail, but it's a adaptive trail with Proline features. It's very unique. There's some really challenging things. Most people will not be hitting the A-lines, but it's got some things that you normally don't find in Vermont, and I'm really proud of how it came out. I would like to do more of that stuff, to be honest. I love building just as much as I do riding, but I don't know if I could be a builder for all time. My biggest dream that I have never really talked about, or you might remember me talking about, is like I want to open up a bike park. I think the financial side of starting that is really hard, but it's something I think about a lot. I think about trail building all the time, and it's something I would love to do. But I also have this other thing that I really enjoy doing, which is making YouTube videos about riding. So where I'm going to go, I don't know. The other thing I was planning on doing for next year is I was getting ready to do a little bit more racing again. It's been 10 years since I've really raced competitively. It was something I was looking forward to, and it would be a good story to tell on this channel. Am I still going to do that? I don't know. I might. And if you would like to be part of the conversation, again, you can get in touch with me using the links below. Find me on my socials. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. I'm going to end off this video here. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. I hope it's a good one. I am going to go spend time with my cat and my wife and have some hot chocolate. So I'll see you guys in the next one.